Thanks for joining today. I'm up here on the UP Fresno sub, and I'm at Foster Farms. And I've got some a loaded grain train came through a few days ago and dropped off all the cars, and then the power left. And I'm using the plant switcher today, and I got to bring some of the loaded grain cars over to the grain unloader and drop them off so they can get unloaded into the plant. And I also want to show you some new things that I'm experimenting with what I call complex industries. And most typical industries in Run 8 are pretty basic, where you just drop off a box car and it's loaded, you pick it up when it's empty, or any, covered hopper, tank cars. But some industries like this have grain unloading, then you got to put empties somewhere because, they're not necessarily probably unloaded all at the same time. Maybe they are, but might be like 10 cars at a time or 5 at a time each day. And then there's also some other cars that they take, I think, over here, like tank cars or covered hoppers or box cars on this track here. So what I'm experimenting with, and I'm going to show you right now, is I've actually made 3 different industries, or maybe 4, for Foster Farms. So I've got this one, which is part of the LRS 99 local job. And there's covered hoppers. It looks like just covered hoppers, 4 of them. And these tracks are FFL, so they go right here on that track, just those 4. But then typically the way Run 8's normally set up is there'd be other tracks like over by the unloader tagged FFL. Everything would be FFL for Foster Farms. That's what it was. But what I'm doing is I'm just making more industries, but for Foster Farms. So I've got a Foster Farms grain unload. I've got a Foster Farms loop track and a Foster Farms empties staging. And let me show you how I'm using this. And the reason I'm doing it is just to make it easier for me to remember, like when I come back to these places. And also, there's some cool features that Run 8 does when you do this. So I'm going to show you now. So the first stage, if you will, is the loop track. So a loaded grain train comes into this loop track and drops off all the cars. And it's going all the way to the other side. And we also got a problem over here because they didn't separate it and they're blocking this truck. This guy's been stuck here for 8 hours. So we got to also pull these apart so he can get in to this scale here. So what I did is the loop track, these cars come in with a tag of FF-LT, Foster Farms loop track. And then I set it here. If I go to Foster Farms loop track, FFLT is the tag it takes, and I set it for 24 hours. I might change that to 12. Doesn't really matter. But basically, after 24 hours sitting on this track, the cars will get tagged with grain unload. And that's where they are now. So if I pull the tags up, see they say grain unload on each car because they're all loaded. And the other thing you can do is if I pull up the industry cars here, this tab under industry list, and click this drop down, all these ones that are green mean cars are ready to be picked up. And I put all my unit train industries at the bottom with a Z, the Z keeps them grouped at the bottom of the list, because then up here is all your just regular local jobs. So if they're green, it means there's cars ready. So if I go down here, Foster Farms loop track is green. So if I click it, you'll see that all these under hours, no more hours left. They're all ready to go, and they need to go to grain unload. So now I can say, well, where's grain unload? Where am I supposed to bring these? And if I turn on the industry tags, you'll see this track I'm over right here is configured as grain unload rather than just having like a 3-letter code. It works with, these words, but I think the dash is important. If you have spaces, I don't think it works. but I've tested it with the dash, so it's all one word, or it's all combined, and it works. It'll process them. So now I know, okay, here, this track right here, that's FFL. I don't want that one. FFLT over here, Foster Farms loop track. And then I also have another industry, which is these two tracks, and these are grain-MTY for grain empties. So basically, all right, we're going to pull, like I'm probably going to grab 6 cars. I don't know how many will fit here. I haven't done it yet. But I'll grab 6, maybe 8, and bring them to the grain unload tracks. And then let me pull this up. So if I go to Foster Farms grain unload, takes 5 hours to unload those cars. And then after 5 hours, they're going to be tagged as grain MT-MTY for grain empties. And then I know, okay, well, I'll be able to be anywhere on the map and look and see like, oh, Foster Farms grain unload, this will be green after they're processed. Click it, and it'll say, oh, there's 6 cars, and they need to go to grain empty. And then when I get here, I know, oh, that's these 2 tracks. This is where the empties get stored. And then when there's enough empties here, then, the unit train will come and pick them up and maybe show up with another load. So I'm testing this out for industries like this. I did it for Cemex cement plant and coal. That one's got even more because you got cement loading, unloading, you got coal unloading, loop tracks, empties staging, load staging while they're waiting to be picked up. And I'm going to do that one on a future episode. So for now, let's do this one. We'll start this guy up. And I need to get onto this loop track, and I'm going to go with, I think, 8 cars. And we'll see if they'll fit. I got to make sure I throw that one so I don't end up out on the main line. And while I'm rolling here, I wanted to just share some interesting information that I found online when I was configuring Foster Farms up here and trying to figure out how unit trains come in and everything. And what I found was they said that it says the Surface Transportation Board, STB, has actually ordered Union Pacific to prioritize these specific Foster Farms trains in the past because a delay could lead to a massive animal welfare crisis. The trains are considered a life safety issue for the millions of chickens and turkeys. Because the Central Valley doesn't produce enough corn locally to sustain that volume, those UP deliveries are essentially a rolling lifeline. I thought that was pretty interesting. I got to pull off some handbrakes. I think I'll just do this manually because I'm only going to take 8 cars. Should fit. So the angle cocks are all open there. I just got to connect the air hoses. I can also do that to release the handbrake. So how many, I guess I wasn't counting. How many do I have here so far? 3? Oh, I'm on the other side of the fence. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need 4 more. That's 5. I think this should be 8. And I can double check by clicking here and open the tagger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can cut it right here. And then now I'm going to run back to the front and let's get these filled with air because I think they're all empty, right? Yeah. You know what? I guess we don't even need to fill them with air. It's only 8 cars. I mean, I guess I'll open it up, but I don't think it really matters because we're only going a few feet. We got 2.8 horsepower per ton, so this is only 1,000 tons. So that should be no problem here for this GP40 just to move down the track. And I'm going to set the counter right when I get here. So now it's counting down, so I know that's the point where we'll be clear of any other track switches. We should fit these 8 in there easily. These guys look like they're finishing their shift. Not sure actually which one would be the grain unloader. Would it be the one we just went under or this one? Because this is a loader. Unless it sucks it up out of the top. I'm not really sure. I think the unloaders normally go down through the grates like underground. she's struggling to stop. It's a good thing I did fill those with air. Or maybe that's why. Let me see. Wonder if, I'll bet you the reservoirs. Yeah, that's probably why. Those reservoirs weren't probably full enough yet. Let's see what happens when I release the train brake. Yeah, that's why I didn't have enough air in those cars. I was gonna say it seemed like it was really struggling to stop. It was mostly all the locomotive brakes doing the work. All right, so now let's see, we're stopped here. I could just cut these out. And I'm gonna throw this. No, I think it's already correct. Yeah, because we gotta move these up here so that truck could get through. This is a really nice facility they did here. I like all the detail in the back. Adding some new assets. That scale, the truck scale's nice looking too. And I think that should do it there. I can cut it right here. And I'm not going to worry about air on these. Let me just jump back to the front. That truck driver has got to just be livid in that truck. Just stuck for 8 hours. I think I'm just going to leave this guy here for now, so we don't need him for anything else until these are done being processed. So I can turn the engine off, switch off the headlights. I'll even come in here and close the window so it doesn't get wet if it rains, turn off the gauge lights, and turn off all the power. And I want to show you over here. So now that these cars are in the grain unload track, if I go ahead and, for me, it's F10. I don't think that's the default, but I've got F9 as my industry config, this window, and then F10 as the industry list. So now if I go here to Foster Farms loop track, you'll see there's still the ones that we haven't grabbed yet. They're still in the loop track. And then under grain unload, it's not green yet because they haven't been unloaded yet. There's still time. But now look, here's the ones I just dropped off. There's 5 hours left, and they're still loaded. And when these 5 hours are up, then they're going to be tagged grain empty, and they'll be emptied. And then I know I got to move them over to these 2 tracks that are the grain empty industry tracks here. And then after these grain empty tracks process them, then they're tagged, I think, ST for Stockton. They just go north off the map. And in case you're wondering too about like the phases, like loaded and empties, because I have them coming in on a unit train, I have it configured to come in loaded. And then the way Run 8 works is if I go up here to the loop track, they come in loaded to the loop track. And after the 24 hours, it says produces loads. So it just keeps them loaded. They were loaded, and then after the 24 hours, they're just going to stay loaded. And the same over here on grain unload, it produces empties. So they're going to be emptied out after the 5 hours in the unload track. And then when I put them on the empties staging track, that also I kept it as produces empties. So they're going to get here as empty. And then after 1 hour, they'll just be retagged. I just put that in there because it just goes off at the Covell point north. But they're just going to stay empty. All that will change is the tag. So just in case you weren't aware with Run 8, when you're configuring your industries, or like if you're doing it this way with a complex industry, you can maintain a loaded state or an empty state if you want to, if that's how you want to set it up. But that's it for Foster Farms for today. Next time we come back, we'll be moving these empties over to the empty track.